Okay, it's a great Monday morning, no doubt about that. Many thanks, everyone, for joining us here on Global Television. I'm Uyag Mofwebe. This is welcoming you to Global Morning, Global Television. And of course, as always, we're delighted to know that you're starting your Monday and indeed your working week with us here. My colleague, who is returning to action, as they say in football, is also on the program this morning.
Good morning. Good morning. It's good to see you this morning.
Me too. You're not coughing anymore, are you?
I still have, mild. It's mild now. It's
Okay.
better. A lot of relief.
Right.
There's so much that happens when, different people have what they use. Some people say their voice is their source of income. Their hands are their source of income. Their beauty is their source of income. And then what happens when that source of income is altered?
Or being threatened.
Or being threatened, you begin to panic and all of that. I had a bit of cough, and during that period, I had a whole lot of remedies. People told me, chew bitter leaf and tom-tom, chew bitter cola and tom-tom, chew raw ginger, chew garlic. I was almost becoming, a herbalist, having to chew because I desperately needed something to. But in all of that, maybe it also contributed to the relief that I felt, but I don't know how effective some of these, because it still took a while for me to recover suddenly. So you hear people say when you chew it instantly, it clears off. Instantly, it does. So I don't know how effective bitter cola and tom-tom is to killing bacteria, because these things are, respiratory.
You're inspiring the research now, whether you know it or not. But who is going to fund it, I don't know. Quite frankly, for those who didn't see you for a day or two, probably had thought you traveled to the village to look for these items. This is when you remember the value of your grandma's garden behind the house, where you can find a couple of these things. But it's good to have Queen Agaba back on the program. Everyone,
Absolutely.
yeah, it's a Monday, and a lot has happened in the week that was. Some of them will form the crux of our conversations on the program. Today, we understand there was an election in Kano just on Saturday, which has now become very controversial. Opposition is kicking, civil society organizations are talking, and then there's also the conversation around different minimum wage amounts being announced by various states across this country. The most recent being Bayelsa State that has now announced 80,000 naira minimum wage. We have seen some states saying before now that look, we don't have a problem with the 70,000 naira that has been proposed by the committee, the tripartite committee that is set up by the government to look into this issue. So 70,000 is the baseline, as they say in finance. However, some other states, for obvious reasons, decided to raise theirs to between 72 and as high as 82,000 per month. And we have seen states, governors in particular, saying that, look, in these states, the minimum a worker should go home with is the minimum wage that we have set now, which, like we said, vary across different states. But a lot of persons have been saying that it's one thing for you to peg your wage as minimum at whatever level, but how you pay going forward is more of the challenge.
Exactly. I absolutely agree. And considering the fact that we've had various minimum wage vary, this person is paying 82,000, this person is paying 80,000. I want to understand the rationale behind, a little away from it's inspiring knowing that states wants to do better.
Right.
Wants to up their game, ensure that their workers are well remunerated.
Yeah.
But again, it's one thing to say we're going to pay above the stipulated minimum wage, and it's another thing to diligently follow through and ensure that workers get paid as at when due. And we don't want to have issues of, okay, you're now agreeing to pay 80,000 naira, but this 80,000 naira, workers will not be paid for 3 months, will not be paid for as far as 4 months, or even a year. We've had cases like that.
And the governor says, well, it is the past government.
And then, these funds were being transferred from government after government. It's unfair that people put in their hearts to work especially now that we know the cost of transportation, a lot of people are even quitting their jobs because when they look at the cost implications, they're like, it's literally, I'm working for the drivers.
Right.
I'm working to just be on the road, literally.
And buy a loaf of bread.
Yes, buy a loaf of bread. Sometimes you can't even buy a loaf of bread because once you think about I was conversing with someone the other time, and she was saying that she's looking at quitting her job because after calculations, she discovers that the money she spends on transportation in a month is her salary. So she's going to talk to her employers about a salary raise or quit.
Two options.
Two options. And for employers as well, it's not easy for employers as well because the cost of running the business has also skyrocketed. And so they're left with, how do we, what do we do? How do we go from here? Businesses are also shutting down as well. Just how employees are thinking of quitting. A lot of businesses are even thinking of shutting down as well because they can't even run, such businesses effectively again because of policies that are unfavorable and conditions that they cannot explain. And so for state workers, I really hope that due diligence is done. It's a good one that some states are going to pay above the stipulated minimum wage, but let it be paid when necessary. And we don't want to hear cases where we would rather you pay 70,000 naira and pay it consistently for 1 year than decide to pay 80,000 naira and people are owed salaries for 6 months.
And they will say we raised their salaries.
So we raise their salaries, just surface level interactions and all that.
All right, this is quite interesting. There's an element in this that is a bit intriguing. I mean, the governor's saying that even local governments, councils in their various states will have to pay the same. Whether or not the governors have the latitude or prerogative to make that decision, we're not so sure of. Our guest on the program this morning will help us find that sense and establish the narrative very properly. But one thing we do know is this. As it stands today, the principle is that when the state says, for instance, let's say Bayelsa State, that we're paying 80,000 naira as minimum wage, which is the case in that state with 8 local government areas, just to mention, all right, it simply means that even the private sector is required or expected to pay that same amount. So if you are a driver who works for a small business or a medium-sized business in Bayelsa State, your minimum pay is supposed to be 80,000. Whether you're a cleaner, you're an errand person, you're the person who does all of the day-to-day running for that organization, your minimum wage should be 80,000 naira. I'm just highlighting Bayelsa as a case in point, for instance. But like Queen just rightly mentioned, how can the private sector essentially deal with these? Because we see how, as we say on social media, their necks have also been pressed in the manner of speaking. Right, we see how the policies have been very harsh against business environments in this country, where you have the bulk of the private sector players. All right, so if the policies are not favorable to businesses and organizations in this country, how can they pay that much? We saw some big-time players in the private sector come out a few months ago to say that, look, I can't imagine paying my driver or my gardener or my gate man or the door guy minimum wage of 70,000. We saw some high-ranking aides, even in the government of President Bola Tinubu, saying that they can't pay their drivers 100,000. I mean, when we're still having the debate of where to peg the minimum wage. So it's quite a complicated, sensitive, and technical issue to deal with. And let's not also forget, there's something called the consequential adjustments, because we're just talking about the minimum wage now, which is to say that there's a baseline wage that a worker in the state should be paid, which we understand varies from state to state. But what do you do with those, or for those who are high up the rungs of the ladder? For example, in their career in the service, especially when you talk about the organized civil service. So this is a conversation that many states are still having. We know that some states have said, well, we'll set up a committee to look into the factors and elements around consequential adjustment. But let's see how all of this will pan out. We understand that the organized labor is particularly impressed with some states are doing. Take a state like Kebbi, for example, where the governor himself is a labor guy, so to speak, all right? So he understands basically how the labor system works. They've also raised their own minimum wage, and they said, look, starting from November, this minimum wage kicks in. So for many states, it's the same thing. However, like Queen also mentioned a while ago, it is the consistency of payments that matters far more than the amount in itself, because I'm sure a typical civil servant in this country would rather receive 70,000 naira in peace, all right, between 24th and 30th of every month, and that will happen every other month.
Exactly.
As against saying, we're paying you 90,000, 100,000, and then you have a backlog, you have a stack of several months, you've not paid them. Exactly. And then you send them back to the street, they're carrying placards when I start hearing about Nigerian Union of Pensioners. You know, somebody has even said, by the way, that it's laughable that we have a union for pensioners, and all they do is to remind governments across this country about their money.
It's sad. It's a sad thing. And we're tired of seeing Nigerian workers after every 6 months or 3 months with placards demanding what is rightful.
Right.
What is the right thing? What is
Their own entitlement.
Exactly. We're tired. I think it's barbaric at this point in time. We're in 2024, for crying out loud. When people work, we're tired of seeing. It's a shame, and I think that our leaders should begin to look and doing the needful. I'll always. The Nigerians are not dummies. We see people who work. You know, and we're seeing the good work that other governors are doing. Take, for instance, Alex Oti.
Right, in
so
Abia
when
State.
you do the right things, it's not like anybody wants to just come out and lambast the government. No, Nigerians are watching. What is being done with taxpayers' money? When we see you do the right things, you'll be commended. And I'm sure other governors can see as well. Can see how, you know, salaries that are being owed to workers have been cleared even from the previous government, rather than transfer it to the next administration and continue to keep people in perpetual hardship. So we need to hold you accountable. What are you doing? See how much, you know, Abia State is transforming.
Right.
See how much the government
under the leadership of Alex Oti.
Alex Oti.
You see, sometimes some of these things are not as difficult as they seem. Yes, leadership can be overwhelming, can be very protracted, especially when you pick up an entity, whether it's a small organization or a state or even a country, from a place where it was already very challenged. We understand these things can be very difficult to deal with, so you're not going to expect a miracle or some sort of magic to happen overnight. However, there's what they call the low-hanging fruits. There are some things that are easier to deal with, that you can deal with within a day or two, or a week or 2 weeks or a month. So they don't necessarily need that sort of time to incubate and all of that, all right? You can do them almost at the snap of fingers. Some of them just need basic common sense. When you have those that need policy framework, you need reforms, they can take up to 18 months, they can even take the lifetime of an entire administration. We have all of those, but let's deal with the ones that are low-hanging, the ones that are within reach first, and then we'll talk about the complex ones later. All right, let's not get it complicated at this point for you. We're taking a quick break, everyone, and when we return, it will be time to bring you big headlines from across our national dailies. Okay, time for papers. Now, let's begin with the Nigerian Tribune. We have headlines just above the nameplate. One here with a picture of President Bola Tinubu, cost of governance in Nigeria among highest in sub-Sahara Africa. That's according to the Revenue Mobilization and Fiscal Commission, all right, RMAFC, saying that, okay, cost of governance in Nigeria among highest in sub-Sahara Africa. Some people even say it's the highest, but we'll probably need to crunch the numbers and look at what the data is saying to come to a very valid conclusion. NNPCL helicopter crash, another body recovered. That's our story. NSIB to deploy 2 more specialists to crash sites today. What else do we have? NIWA to phase out wooden boats on inland waterways. Long overdue, I tell you. That's according to the MD of the Nigerian Inland Waterways Agency. All right. 2025 LG election won't hold in 37 LCDA's Lagos Assembly. And the LEA recovers illicit consignments in Lagos Shrine underground storage in Lekki. A little wonder the spokesperson for the NDLEA, Femi Babafemi, on LinkedIn in the week that was saying that Lekki plug don't cast. All right. It was actually this discovery of underground storage that was found in that part of Lagos State. All right, so let's take a look at the big story for you this morning. Nigeria's 134.3 trillion naira debts overhang. Service costs undermine private investments, economic growth. 2 riders here say future income of Nigerians being used to service debts. Experts may take 25 years of double size of economy at current growth rates. That's done. So it means if our economy will need to grow twice the size it currently stands at, and then that will run for 25 years for us to be able to pay off this debt. So if the economy remains like this, if the trajectory stays the same, it will take 50 years apparently. All right, that's what a certain expert is saying. But let's pretend and just move on quickly. Let's not spoil the week already. Dangote backs Tinubu CNG drive, invests over $280 million in trucks. Infrastructure becomes the largest operator of CNG trucks in Nigeria. Talk about pioneer investor, right? So he has jumped into the sector now, investing $280 million in trucks and infrastructure, becoming the largest operator of CNG trucks in Nigeria. So everybody needs to take a cue. For those who are interested in investing, you're asking yourself, where do I put this chunk of money I have somewhere? How do I invest it? CNG is going to be a big deal. Those who are futuristic, those who have an eye for the future, have seen it already. So this is the time to do your research, do your homework, do your due diligence, ask the right questions, strike conversations with the right people, and see at what level you can come in. You can't necessarily be Dangote. You don't have to be him. You don't have to put in $280 million or even invest in truck and other similar infrastructure. But just ask yourself, where can I play within the CNG space? It reminds me of when GSM came back in the day. You know, there were those we used to call roadside. I remember back then when retrieving your lost SIM card was a big problem. Buying a SIM card was even a bigger problem. And you had people who were doing more like trial and error and things like that. And today, those are probably some of the biggest players in the industry. They want to unlock some certain kinds of fun for you. They're charging you in tens of thousands, sometimes upwards of 100,000 and things like that. So there's an advantage in starting early. All right. That's the point we're making. But let's not talk about investment this morning. Let's look at other stories. This is not so inspiring. Says Nasu Sanu declaring indefinite nationwide strike over withheld salaries.
Again, here we go again.
Yes. You know, when I saw it yesterday, I tried to reach out to the chairman of Sanu at the University of Benin. We're hoping we could have him on the program this morning. But what struck a chord for me was the fact that these are essential guys within the university chain, work chain as it were, right? When you look at the staff strength of any university in this country, particularly the public universities, by the time you pull out these guys, you are grounding that university already. You may say, yes, there will be lectures, but these are the guys who run the show, so to speak. All right, they are the guys who are in operations, they are the guys in admin, they are the guys you are going to meet in exams and records, they are the guys you are going to meet when you have issues with your files and all of that. They are the faculty workers, the departmental staff, and what have you. So if they down tools, no matter what you learn, who is going to conduct exams for you? Okay, let's not get perplexed and overwhelmed already. There is light at the end of the tunnel. We just need to go back to dialogue
Why can't that light come front? Why do we have to go walk,
Okay, you think you should meet us where we are right
Yes,
now?
so
Why do
that
we have to
light
keep
just
moving?
meet us where we are. We don't know how long the tunnel is. Like you say, it could be 50 years, and we don't want to wait 50
No, I didn't
years
say that.
to
It's
get
in the
that light,
papers this
according to what's in the papers. Can that light meet us where we are? Can the
That's
tunnel
quite
be?
thought-provoking question to ask because some people have died waiting for that light to
Waiting for that
shine.
light.
All right, but we need to keep believing that the light will definitely shine at some point because one of their demands is that their 4 month salaries should be paid. All right, so they can't continue to deal with health salaries. And who is talking to them about these issues? Who is even giving them some indication that, look, we're ready to resolve these issues and then have them go back to work? All right. PDP chairmanship, why Damagu may see off IU's tenure. David Mark gives conditions, not comfortable with 10-month tenure. All right. PDP is a house divided against itself at this point, and the facts are right there. There's the wiki element, there's the Damagu factor, and you have the interim chairman that was put there by another faction of the PDP, where you have people like former Vice President Atiku Abubakar, you have Ugo Chinyere and co. So it's quite a mix that doesn't even position PDP well and effectively enough to run its own business internally, let alone to be properly positioned for 2027. Yes, I had to mention 2027 because that seems to be the biggest talk amongst political parties at this point in time. Well, let's leave it there and turn to another paper, this time the Daily Independent, and Queen has those details for us.
Yeah, let's look at the front page of the Daily Independent for you. Big story there says, oil and gas sector. Expert list how federal governments can ramp up production and also attract investment. List solution to underwhelming agri sector performance. Niger Delta agitators threaten to shut down oil installations. Rider there says warns against use of courts to stop rivers local government allocation. And helicopter crash, NSIB to deploy remedy. Remotely, I beg your pardon, to deploy remotely operated vehicle to recover bodies of victims. Rider also says FDR, CVR yet to be located 72 hours later. Federal government reforms to support investor confidence and economic stability, according to Wale Edun. We have INEC chair risk jail over non-compliance with electoral offences order. TCN assures on restoring power to northern Nigeria amid security concerns. And climate change solutions top CHOGM 2024 as Nigeria backs resolutions. Also, on the front page of the Daily Independent, Dangote backs Tinubu's CNG drive, invests over $280 million in truck infrastructure. A whole lot of concerns concerning the CNG move and the CNG drive right there. But we see Dangote in support, not just in support, but also monetary support as well. Fresh crisis hits varsities as NASU and SANU declare nationwide strike. Lastly, on the Daily Independent, we have Nigeria's power crisis worsening, business failure, and poverty, according to Peter Obi. First of all, we had issues with tariff hike, increase in tariff. We moved from different bands, band A to band B to band C and all of that. And the move was all in the bid to ensure that people, are properly placed where they belong and to ease power distribution and consistently with power. And after all of this, the resultant reactions has been that people are complaining, even with the exorbitant amount of money they pay for light. In some areas, it is not constant. And sometimes it is not duly proportioned.
Right.
Because you're paying an exorbitant amount for light weekly as opposed to how it used to be. And before you know it, you can't even talk about what you have done,
Right.
used, to warrant, such amount of money being, chunked out from your pocket for electricity. And business owners are not finding it easy at all, believe me. And with how much the power grid has been collapsing in the past couple of months or weeks, is alarming as well. And so people have been talking, and particularly now, Peter Obi has also commented on Nigeria, on the power crisis that we're having, saying that it's actually worsening businesses, because most of the people who cry out are business owners.
Right.
Business owners. And part of the reasons why we're not even talking about electricity, particularly electricity, one of the major reasons why people are complaining and business owners are complaining is because electricity is rendering their efforts in futility. Imagine someone who is into business that requires that frozen businesses, food items, perishables particularly, they would record a large amount of spills. We've had cases where people are crying over spills because of electricity. People who have packaged their products, packaged their edibles that requires it to be frozen or kept fresh are recording large amount of losses because 1 minute they stock up, they believe that they have paid for electricity and there will be constant electricity, even if they have to pay, out of pain, that's, exorbitant amount of money. They believe they've done the needful, and before you know it, the power grid collapses. And there are no alternatives, because it comes when, there's absolutely, and the cost of running generators as well, fuel.
Right.
You want to get the fuel, long queues, and how fuel, so they're left, it's more like the devil and the rest. In fact, not the devil and the rest in this case, they're just left in between two hard rocks, not knowing what to do or where to go. And so we need to, as a matter of urgency, fix this so that businesses can thrive as well.
Just to add to that, so yesterday was Sunday, and then all of a sudden power goes off at about 5 a.m. and my wife instinctively says, "Hope it's not power grid collapse again." And she was not kidding, right?
Excuse me, please.
Because we've seen this happen time and again. I mean, we had 3 instances in 5 days, 2 of them within 24 hours. So it just becomes registered in your head somehow, maybe somewhere within your subconscious, that every time power goes off like that, and it appears to be across the entire neighborhood, there's a pretty good chance it is grid collapse. On Friday, I spoke with somebody who had been an MD at a point, an executive director of one of the power distribution companies in this country, and he talked about how that the issues are very clear. What the problems are not secretive. All right, you need to get the right hands to do the right thing. You need to think energy mix. You need to think energy transition in practical sense of the word, and ask yourself, how are other countries, even within the continent of Africa, doing it? Look at Egypt, look at Morocco, look at Algeria, look at South Africa, for example. What are they doing differently that we cannot do? But many persons say you still have the cabal and the corruption factors playing out in the power sector. Well, let's turn to the Punch newspaper this morning. Let's begin with the star story for you. Here on the Punch, it says, again, varsities face lockdown as workers begin strike. Today, ASU has moved his own to, ASUP moved their own to December first week, but now NASU and SANU having their day. The writer says, not teaching staff shut varsities offices, gates, ministry mom as minister quits Wednesday. See, that even protracts it further. Minister of Education is leaving. Yes, we know, of course, someone is going to pick up from that point, but what happens to the negotiations that have been ongoing up until this time? And then we understand, yes, there's a minister coming into the Ministry of Labor, but how much will this make a difference for the better in terms of how we run our universities and take care of those who actually do the work within these universities? Okay, above the nameplates, FG plans tax overhaul to access $750 million World Bank loan. Again, we go borrowing. Army begins enlisting ex-soldiers to bridge manpower shortfall. EFCC to track funds as LG autonomy begins November. All right, so let's bring it a bit further down. NSCDC arrests illegal Chinese miners in Nasarawa. Helicopter crash. Family demands body of missing NNPCL worker. Such a sad story still unfolding. Lagos probes engineer's death at construction sites. CNG, Dangote invests $280 million in conversion orders. Let's multiply the refuel points. I mean the CNG designated centers across the country to make it easier for this alternative to be accessible to Nigerians. Because the president last week said that you have two options, Nigerians. All right, if you can't buy fuel for 1,000 naira or higher, the alternative is the younger sibling in this case, in the manner of speaking, which is the CNG. So if that's the case, we've got to make CNG accessible and available to citizens. Okay, let's take away from the Punch now and move on to the Daily Trust's newspaper.
Yeah, on the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper, big story says hardship bites harder as North enters 8th day without electricity. The writer there says services grounded in hospitals and labs. Residents, frozen food dealers count losses. Exactly what I was talking about here. And also vandals on the prowl destroy transformers. Efforts to restore power ongoing according to the Transmission Company of Nigeria. Well, I don't know how best to react to this big story right here. Hardship bites harder as North enters 8th day without electricity. Now, frozen food dealers are counting losses, and most likely in the millions. And also hospitals as well. These are essential services we're talking about here. Lives are dependent. Surgeries that are supposed to be done would have no options. Doctors will have no options than to, I don't know how
call them off,
run off with generators, high cost.
Exactly, for those who even have functional generators.
Exactly.
So how do you feel? How do you buy diesel?
How do you buy diesel? Here we go again. And then vandals on the prowl, they destroy transformers. When we talk about development, when we talk about new policies or new inventions and new innovations, it's a welcome development. But I want to believe that there are things that we should have fixed that are pivotal to the success of our new inventions, of our new innovations. Take, for instance, insecurity. Now we were talking, the other day I was talking about the new train stations that were commissioned and, rails, and how vandals have begun to ploy those areas. There were instances where trains could not move because of the tracks were vandalized. Those tracks were vandalized. And so these are very important issues we need to fix. It is beautiful to know that we have a transport system such as a train that is reactivated again. And people can now move with ease, long distances. But have we fixed insecurity? Have we been able to checkmate train vandals, track vandals, particularly? Do we have measures put in place to ensure that those tracks are safe? Take, for instance, CCTVs, police checkpoints like we have in, gadgets to monitor, to help us so that we don't spend millions of dollars, millions of naira on a project only for it to pack up after 2 months.
Right.
It's an exercise in futility. And here we go again. We're talking about transformer vandals. This transformer, for how long are we going to they fix transformers today, they buy a new transformers today, and before you know it, we're hearing of thefts.
Right.
Vandals, people who go to these transformers and steal essential items, essential wirings. So it's one thing, we need to look at it. It's critical. Security for any nation, any growing nation to thrive, security needs to be top of the game, so that when we bring inventions, those inventions can be long lasting, those innovations can be long lasting. If not, we will just be going in rigmaroles. We fix this today, tomorrow it gets spoiled. We fix it. So we're taking 2 steps forward, 3 steps backward. I hope and I pray that we'll do what is necessary. Well, underneath the nameplate of the Daily Trust, we have 7 die in Abuja building collapse. It's sad, quite unfortunate. That's
the one somewhere in the on the outskirts of Lugbe, right? Incidentally, we're told that that building had been demolished, but then a few of the pillars were still standing. All right, we understand that Department of Development had been there. That was the FCT Department of Development had been there to demolish because it was an illegal structure, and then some of the pillars were still standing. And from the reports we got yesterday, about 500 scavengers had hit that remnants, whatever was left of the building, all in a bid to look for rods. Of course, there's a reason they are called scavengers. So it was in the middle of it that it collapsed on them and 7 lives were lost. Of course, some had been rescued, some of them in critical condition in hospitals and all of that. But you see, how do you pull out rods from a pillar and expect it not to collapse? Because it's natural that the rods are in place to help hold the pillars. Yes, exactly, in position. That's the whole idea. So if you pull them out, it's like you're rooting, you're uprooting a tree and you expect that the tree will not fall. It doesn't work like that. But you see, this is not just a matter of trying to put food on your table. It's also about the fact that some sort of principles were not adhered to here, right? Ignorance was a factor, no doubt about that. Because you can't pull out the rods in a pillar and expect it to still be standing in place. If that story is anything to go by, do you know what it means, Queen, for 500 human beings? All right, to attack, so to speak, a structure that was already demolished for the most part. Let's even assume the number was inflated. Let's say it was 100 persons, which is just about 20% of the figure that we saw yesterday. It is still a whole lot of people. So this should be an eye-opener for not just scavengers, but for all of us to understand that when we talk about safety, especially within construction sites, it's no child's play.
And I also think that whenever we have issues like that, cases like that, disasters like that, our disaster management or response team should also be, active. Can we have barricades around those areas so that people do not, for their safety, and yes, exactly, for the safety of their lives and also those around that vicinity, and also when a building collapses like that, rubbles, dust, toxins, a lot of things. And so we don't want to have scavengers go there and continue to make a big deal out of it and ensure that those dust and particles fly off in the air. So we expect that we see the disaster management team as well as security agents around those areas, those structures, barricade and ensure that scavengers don't. And like you rightly said, it also boils down to knowledge. Ignorance is a major factor as to why those people had to die. I want to call it a foolish death, the way they died. Because time and time again, we've seen, take for instance, when we have tanker explosions on the highway or in communities.
Right.
Say a tanker falls down and fuel is spilling. While we can attribute it to poverty and, ignorance, but a bigger chunk of it would be greed and ignorance as well, because this is not the first time. I don't think it's ignorance. I just think it's stupidity. Because take for instance the last tanker that fell off and exploded.
The one in Jigawa State.
Yes. This is not the first time we have such issue. As far back as we can say, okay, poverty, hardship. Maybe hardship is a major factor why people don't even care. They've come to that point where they're so desperate to live, just to put something on their table, quite frankly. But this is not the first time we've had, even before Nigeria got to be as difficult as it is now, as far back as even in the 90s. We've had cases where tanker explodes and people are going to school fuel. And
there's a spark.
Yes, exactly. There's a spark. Just one little spark, and people are burned to ashes. And people have been educated time and time again that when tankers, when these sort of things happen, for your safety, leave.
Stay away.
Such situation.
Run as far away from it as you can.
So we can't totally say that, okay, it is hardship that is making people go to that place. I just think that it is ignorance and foolishness. So such is the case of this building collapse that happened to have killed people, unfortunately.
So these were obviously avoidable deaths, and that's a fact. But the one that really got to me was where we learned that law enforcement had even mobilized to the scene, trying to prevent these people from scooping fuel, but they resisted and even fought back. It's more like you're denying us a lifetime opportunity.
Absolutely.
All right, we won't allow that to happen. All right, let's see where we are now. Over 160 lives lost. Look at the mass burial. It's not a pleasant sight, apparently.
It never is. Well, we also have how One Chance Syndicate killed female legislative aide. This is one sad story I do not like to talk about.
All right, the one chance factor, right?
One chance factor. And then Dangote backs Tinubu CNG drive, invest over $280 million in trucks and infrastructure. Lastly, on the front page of the Daily Trust, high cost, low sales at petrol stations as citizens abandon vehicles. Fuel price up by 600% in 2 years. And then increased energy costs threat. Increased energy costs threat to economic growth, according to energy experts. Well, these are the stories we have on the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper.
Okay, let's take a look at the next paper for you. This time we're moving on to the Daily Times, right? Let's see what we have here above the nameplate. It says, Pandey frowns at scrapping of Niger Delta Ministry, welcomes South Commission. With health salaries, NASU Sano declaring indefinite nationwide strike. Two writers here. One tells us regrets that in spite of President Tinubu's approval for 50% 4 months, with health salaries to be paid, none of its members had received any payment. Says sincerity of government to their cause in doubt. Nigeria pushes for solutions to climate change at CHOGM 2024. That's the Commonwealth meeting. All right. What more do we have? VC Tasso Medical Association drags Nnamdi Azikiwe University, I should say, others to courts. VC Tasso Medical Association drags Nnamdi Azikiwe University, others to courts. Pay us while we are alive. Pensioners urge FG PFAs, that's pension fund administrators. Okay, right here it says Tinubu not T-Pain. He feels Nigerians' pain. Or Nanuga, that sounds like play of words, but it's beyond play of words. It's not wordplay, right? It's a real-time conversation because we've seen that trend recently. But here is the Special Advisor to the President on Information and Strategy, Mr. Bayo Onanuga, saying that the President is not T-Pain. He feels he feels Nigerians' pain. All right. He has a rider to it. It says President bought refurbished jet, not new one. I think Mr. Onanuga is staying too long on this jet issue. Just allow it slide already, because the more you try to defend it, the more you aggravate the situation, and if you're not careful, you will step on the sensibilities of Nigerians. This is 2024, Mr. Onanuga. People are smarter now, people are wiser. You have no idea what people do with their smartphones, what they read, what they look up, some things. So if we're not careful, yes, you make it look like it's a fight between you and Gen Zs. That's not a fight you want to start. I mean, you are a respected journalist. You've cut your teeth in the industry. You've paid your dues, as they say, and all of that. So why we respect the fact that you're doing your job, Nigerians do not take that for granted. Let's also be careful about these new used jets. Let's not make it look like you can go to one place at Wuse Market or Utako Market and buy a jet. So let's be careful. People have not moved beyond Lagos, but they can tell you how much a particular Boeing jet sells for. And that is the fact. So let's allow this issue slide and talk about how we can put food on the table of Nigerians, and of course, ultimately in their bellies. And then talk about how we can put more money in their pockets by helping to scale their purchasing power instead of arguing back and forth about the cost of jet, whether it was a new one or a
refurbished
used one. Exactly. Besides, Christmas is around the corner, so this conversation around food and cost of living is just going to become louder in the next couple of weeks. This morning I was coming to work, by the way, Queen, and I felt that Christmas wind, and I knew it. I mean, I couldn't miss it. I knew this was it. So Mr. Onaduga should be coming down a little about these issues, all right? What else do we have here? Last one at the foot of the front page. It says Dangote backs FG CNG drive, invest $280 million in trucks infrastructure. Okay, we have next the Leadership newspaper.
Yes, and on the front page of the Leadership newspaper, we have not too many stories here. Just one big story. We have facility deficit threatens new school curriculum. Rider says basic digital literacy, IT, robotic teaching suffer setbacks, while pupils may not benefit from 15 new trades. And Kano State Government, we have an article here which says Kano local government polls, Governor Abba Kabir Yusuf swears in new local government chairman, urges them to serve with integrity and be fair to all. And then we have pictorial representation of these swearing in that happened in Kano State. Well, these are the stories we have on the Leadership newspaper. I just want to add to the elections in Kano. It's just, you know, I was in awe finding out that, you know, the NNPP swept all of other parties, you know, in the election, the chairman and the chairmanship.
44 local governments.
NNPP, like the New Nigeria People's Party. That's to tell you how much hold the NNPP has in
Kano State.
State. I was like, oh, really? You mean not one party?
So any other political party?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that's amazing. Well, these are the stories we have on the front page of the Leadership.
All right, let's take a look at the Leadership newspaper for you. There's a headline here adjacent to the nameplate. It reads, Police in Enugu arrests reveal inspector who shot musician dead. This story came through yesterday. A certain musician called Igboja, who was said to have been shot dead at the headquarters of anti-cult tactical team in the east. All right, quite sad story coming out from Enugu. We understand that the inspector has now been identified, who was involved in this shooting. All right. Okay, what more do we have? Several stories actually. PANDEF launches committee to resolve Wike Fubara rift. University non-teaching staff declaring definite strike over withheld salaries. Gani Adams sues Sunday Igboho for 5 billion naira over alleged privacy breach. VP Shetima's safety at risk. Borno speaker calls for a new jet. This story came through yesterday, and well, let's just keep this conversation somewhere. All right. Nigerians are not fools. That's a kicker for you. NLC blames IMF, World Bank for economic woes. But of course, we saw that the IMF has come to deny that they are not involved in the economic policies being driven by the government of President Bola Tinubu. That they are not the ones who asked him to remove fuel subsidy. They are not the ones who asked him to roll out fiscal or monetary policies. They are not the ones who asked him to introduce drastic reforms into the tax regime in the country and what have you. But now the Nigeria Labour Congress has said, look, the citizens of this country are not fools. They know what's going on and things like that. But you can read up details for yourself this morning when you pick up a copy of the first newspaper. What else do we have? Showdown looms. Niger Delta militants vows to bomb oil installations over Wike. Onanuga to Nigerians. Tinubu is not T-Pain. He feels your pains. FPs denies 200,000 naira flight fare increase. FPs denies 200,000 naira flight fare increase. Yesterday we were told that local fares are now rising to as high as 400,000 naira. But we hope that is not true, because if it is, I'm just going to imagine what will happen rather than actually have us experience it. But incidentally, we're just going to take one more paper before we call it wraps on the newspaper segment this morning, and that'll be the News Telegraph.
Well, on the front page of the New Telegraph, big story, transport costs. Nigerians appeal for federal government interventions as airfares skyrockets. Absolutely. And also we have fret over insecurity, poor state of roads as charges. Fuel cost remains stable. And we also have aviation ground handling firm to raise charges by over 300%. 70,000 naira for B737 no longer sustainable, according to Agan Chair. And then just on top of the nameplates, we have federal government opens talks with Indian firm to build steel and power plants. Also, 13% derivation, all producing states earnings rise to 87.6% to 901.19 billion naira. And also we have federal government reviews BASA, open skies for UAE, signs fifth freedom rights. What else do we have? We have a picture of Benue State governor here. The headline says, insecurity, over 1,000 bandits occupying forest in Benue local government area. And this is according to council boss. NIWA to phase out wooden boats on inland waterways. Also, Dangote backs Tinubu's CNG drive, invests over $280 million in truck and infrastructure. Deregulation, right here, scarcity will end, fuel pump price will reduce, according to IPMAN. Rider says IMF, World Bank, major players behind Nigeria's woes, according to NLC. And then we have other stories here. NGE tax Southeast governors on security. New political force, KRM, emerges in Kwara, so it's 27. And lastly, we have Tinubu bought refurbished plane, not new ones, according to Ononuga. Well, these are the stories we have on the front page of the papers. And this is where we call it a wrap on newspaper review for you. We'll take a quick break now. And when we return, we'll bring you the global news, after which topical discussions on critical issues will follow. Please stay with us.
Global Morning is your ultimate destination for engaging political and economic matters. I am Uyi Agmofwebe.
And don't forget to include social discussions. Tune in every weekdays from 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. I am Queen Agaba.
For insightful breakfast ideas, business summaries, sports highlights, international and local news perspective, I am Anthony Momodu.
Don't miss the in-depth analysis of current and political issues by the Global Morning team and experts. I am Jumai Manson.
Catch Global Morning here on Global Television. Getting on the action. I am Edikan Michael.
We are
The Global Morning team.
Business Point on Global Television.
The business world can be dynamic and unpredictable, with headwinds and volatility sometimes becoming an obstacle for players in the business and economy landscape. Watch Business Point on Global Television as Samuel Oji walks you through the twists, turns and curves in bands, stocks and crucial market indices from a global standpoint. Watch Business Point weekdays on Global Television at 11 a.m. West African time. Business Point. This is business.
Hello and welcome to all our viewers in Nigeria and around the world to the Global AM News, coming to you live from the nation's capital, Abuja. I am Queen Agaba. A quick reminder that Global Television is on DSTV channel 365 and free to air on Nigecomsat. The Independent Petroleum Marketers Association of Nigeria, IPMAN, says the scarcity of fuel being presently experienced will soon be over. Publicity Secretary of the association, Ukadike Chinedu, made this known that the shifting of the supply chain is the cause of the scarcity in the country, assuring that in a few weeks the product will be available. Chinedu says other reasons for the scarcity include documentation and logistics problems, among others, in the interchange. The association spokesman also says the use of vessels used for supply in the coastal area would advert heavy usage of trucks on the road. Chairman of the Board of Trustees of the Tertiary Education Trust Fund, TED Fund, Aminu Masari, says the fund says the fund intends to create a new intervention line aimed at addressing the pressing issues of security and power in Nigerian tertiary education system. Speaking at a two-day retreat organized by the National Assembly, focusing on the challenges of security and power in higher institutions in Lagos, Masari underscored the pivotal role that education plays in the nation's development and the urgent need for improved funding in the sector. We'll take a quick break. The news continues shortly.
Many thanks for staying with us. The Cocoa Farmers Association of Nigeria has called on government to take more active role in boosting sustainable cocoa production. The association also outlined essential strategies for economic managers to strengthen sustainable cocoa production across the country. In a communique issued by its president, Adeola Adegoke, following its two-day third National Cocoa Festival, the association urged the federal government to prioritize local processing and consumption of cocoa products. The Cocoa Farmers Association of Nigeria noted that the government and the National Cocoa Management Committee need to lead efforts to update and harmonize available data on the cocoa value chain. Speaker of Borno State House of Assembly, Abdul Karim Lawan, has appealed to the federal government to consider buying a new aircraft for Vice President Kashim Shettima. The speaker, who made the appeal in a statement, claimed that the vice president's life is at risk due to the faulty presidential aircraft he flew in while representing President Bola Tinubu in official engagements across the globe. He stated that the aircraft designated to the vice president has had several incidents in recent times. The Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project, SERAP, says it has filed a contempt lawsuit against the chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, Professor Mahmood Yakubu, for purportedly failing to investigate alleged electoral offenses in the 2023 general election. This was disclosed in a statement issued by SERAP's Deputy Director, Kolawole Oluwadare. The organization stated that despite a court order by Justice Obiora Egwatu of the Federal High Court, Abuja, on 18 July 2024, INEC has failed and refused to implement the judgment. Governor of Ondo State, Lucky Aiyedatiwa, has promised to continue delivering the dividends of democracy to the good people of Ondo State when elected on November 16th. The governor, who is a gubernatorial candidate of the All Progressives Congress, APC, made this known at the Palace of Yangede of Ekpe in Ondo East local government area in Ondo State. Kelomo Okere has details.
The governor of Ondo State and All Progressive Congress gubernatorial candidate, Honorable Lucky Orisomi Aiyedatiwa, pledged to promote community development, assuring the people that his administration will not tamper with local government funds. The governor says his administration is focusing more attention on enhancing agriculture and promoting food security in the state. The governor urged all residents of Ondo State to get their voters card in order to exercise their franchise.
All their votes will be casted for APC, and you can see yourself the crowd. The people are so happy, are so joyful, and so they are so delighted. They are happy to see their governor, and they are happy to associate with APC. Now, for those of you who have not gone ahead to collect your PVC at the various points of collection, I want to plead with you. Go out. You still have time to collect your PVC. That is the only way you can make a choice of who you want to govern you for the next 4 years.
Earlier, the Speaker of Ondo State House of Assembly, Right Honorable Olapinde, assured the governor of the full support of the people of Ondo East local government.
A lot for us, and this is time to pay him back, and we have to pay him back in a positive way, in such a way that we have to go back to all our units now, we have to go back to all our wards now, and mobilize for him, so that come November 16, 2024, we will deliver Ondo East for him 100%.
The Commissioner of Information, Wale Akinsolo, to urge the people of Ondo State to come out en masse to vote the APC gubernatorial candidate.
November 16 is on the way. By the grace of God, we are boasting in the Lord that APC will win this election because the governor has done well. To all the citizens of Ondo State, collect your voters card and vote on November 16, 2024.
The Yangede of Epe, Oba Isaac Oyebade, while welcoming the governor, appealed to the state government to upgrade the stool of Yangede to a first-class chieftaincy stool. At a town hall meeting in Bolo Onduro headquarters of Ondo East local government area, leader of the market women in the local government, Chief Nike Awoshikmi, assures the governor of the support of the women in the area. She appeals to the governor to fix the dilapidated roads in the local government to enable farmers transport their goods to the market easily. Kike Lomo Okiri, Global Television News.
The Inspector General of Police, Kayode Egbetoku, has expressed displeasure over the confrontation between police officers and operatives of the Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps in Osogbo, Osun State capital. A corps officer identified simply as Owoye was reportedly assaulted while on guard duty in an estate and subsequently detained by the police. The incident was said to have caused a dispute between the Osun Command of the Corps and the Nigerian Police Force. Osun State government later held a meeting with security heads to resolve the rift. Residents of Enugu State have trooped out to protest the killing of an Ogene musician, Chikezie Mba, popularly known as Igboja, allegedly by a police inspector. Mba was reportedly shot dead by police inspector Ozonwaji Joseph at Police Anti-Court Tactical Squad headquarters in Enugu on Friday evening during a visit. Hundreds of residents of the state who were bitter about Mba's death marched to the Anti-Court headquarters and attempted to burn it down. The protest reportedly turned violent as police fired tear gas at the youths. The Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited says only 3 individuals have been found following Thursday's helicopter crash. This contradicts reports suggesting that 2 additional bodies were discovered on Friday in addition to the 3 recovered on the day of the incident. A statement by the NNPC's Chief Corporate Communications Officer, Olufemi Shoneye, clarified that no further bodies had been found. However, the NNPC's limited spokesperson confirmed that search and rescue operations are still ongoing. Meanwhile, the Nigeria Labour Congress, NLC, has expressed deep sorrow as it acknowledges the tragic news of the East Wind Aviation helicopter crash on October 24, 2024. This was contained in a statement signed by NLC National President Joe Ajaero, noting that the tragic incident claimed the lives of 8 dedicated Nigerian workers on duty. Ajaero says the loss of life underlines the difficult conditions workers often face, which according to him speaks to the urgent and absolute necessity of prioritizing workers' health and safety, as well as ensuring that Nigerian workers in all sectors do not risk their lives to contribute to national progress. Governor of Ondo State and gubernatorial candidate of the All Progressives Congress, Lucky Aiyedatiwa, has reiterated his administration's determination to consolidate on its achievement in the next 4 years if voted into power at the forthcoming governorship election. The governor stated this while addressing community leaders during his campaign tour at Irele local government area in Akure, Ondo State. Here is the report by Kike Lomo Okiri.
Residents of Irele community was overwhelmed with Governor Lucky Aiyedatiwa's presence in the community. The governor, who spoke in his dialect, says his administration had prioritized security of lives and properties, noting that security is crucial for good governance and the development of the state. While promising to run an inclusive government, the governor assures the people of Irele that he will not interfere in the process of selecting a new king for the community, adding that the community will choose its own monarch. Governor Lucky Aiyedatiwa noted that his administration will not make any promise that cannot be fulfilled, adding that his administration has embarked on the construction of 28-kilometer Inyoso-Ajagbo Akotogbo Road. One of the community leaders, Chief Adeni Samson, who also spoke in Irele dialect, commended the governor for paying workers' salary promptly, including gratuities, and enjoining all residents to come out en masse to vote for the governor come November 16. Speaking on behalf of the traditional rulers, Odogbo of Omi, Oba Olorunshola Akiyelure thanked the governor for prioritizing the welfare of the traditional rulers. At Inyoso, where he also received warm reception, the governor was honored with chieftaincy title of Jagumolu of Inyoso by Oba Akinyomi Olashendi, the Larogunsi of Ode Inyoso, with the community declaring total support for his election. The campaign session was conducted in local dialect of the community. From Akure, Kike Lomo Okeri, Global Television News.
The Northern Senators Forum has called for swift action from the federal government to restore electricity to Kano, Katsina, and Jigawa states, where residents have been grappling with severe power outages. Chairman of the forum, Senator Abdulaziz Yaradua, while speaking in Katsina, stressed the critical nature of the situation, emphasizing that prompt intervention is necessary to alleviate the hardship faced by constituents across these regions. He noted that the prolonged outages, primarily attributed to vandalism and the national grid disturbances, have caused significant economic strain as small businesses struggle to survive, hospitals face mounting operational costs, and residents bear the burden of expensive fuel as an alternative energy source. Bayelsa State Governor Doye Deri has approved 80,000 naira as the new minimum wage for state civil servants, effective from November 1st, 2024. Deri also approved an increase in the monthly pension for retirees, as well as a payment of 7 billion naira for gratuities to reduce outstanding liabilities. The Chief Press Secretary, Daniel Alabra, disclosed this in a statement in Yenagoa, noting that Deri acknowledged the challenging times workers face in the state due to the rising costs of living. A Niger Delta military group, the Niger Delta Development Force, has threatened to shut down oil installations in the Niger Delta region. The group stated it will destroy the facilities if President Bola Tinubu fails to caution the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Nyesom Wike, over alleged attempt to undermine the administration of Governor Siminalayi Fubara of Rivers State. In a statement signed by its spokesman, Justin Alabraba, the group expressed particular anger over alleged plan by Wike to use a friendly judge to secure a ruling in his favor, which will purportedly stop local government allocations to the state. The Federal Capital Territory Emergency Management Department says it has recovered 7 dead bodies of iron scavengers who invaded the site of a demolished building in Sabon-Lugbe, a suburb of Abuja. The director of the department, Abdulrahman Mohammed, disclosed this at the site, stating that 2 other victims were receiving medical attention at the Federal Medical Center. Mohammed says the activities of over 500 iron scavengers who invaded the demolished building, pulling down and cutting away iron rods, triggered the remains of the demolished slab to fall on them. You're watching the Global AM News, coming to you live from Nigeria's capital, Abuja. When the Global AM News returns, Central Bank of Nigeria holds talks with international money transfer operators to raise remittance inflows to $1 billion monthly. Details of this, as well as other stories, after. Please stay with us. Many thanks for staying with us. If you've just joined us, This is Global Television bringing you live broadcast of the AM News. In business, the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, says it engaged leading international money transfer operators, IMTOs, to raise remittance inflows to $1 billion through formal channels. Olayemi Cardoso, governor of the CBN, spoke about the remittance target during a press conference in Washington, D.C. Leading the Nigerian delegation, the CBN governor and Wale Edo, the Minister of Finance, have been engaging global leaders, investors, and diaspora community in the past week at the annual meetings of the International Monetary Fund, IMF, and the World Bank in the United States. The Central Bank Governor, Olayemi Cardoso, says Nigeria is considering launching a diaspora bond in the United States as part of its strategy to achieve monthly remittance inflows of $1 billion. The Nigerian Communication Commission says it is leading industry reforms aimed at restoring consumer confidence in the telecommunications sector. The regulator has introduced new measures to enhance transparency and accountability within the telecommunications sector. In recent times, the services of the nation's major telecommunications operators have degenerated, with users reporting persistent disruptions to calls and data services. The Commission aims to foster a healthier, more trustworthy and consumer-centered telecommunications environment in Nigeria by implementing rigorous evaluations of service reliability, consumer satisfaction, and regulatory compliance. The Lagos Blue Line Rail has resumed after a fire outbreak on a section of its track. Boyega Akoshile, spokesperson for Babajide Sanwo-Olu, governor of Lagos, says the fire occurred at 4:12 p.m. He added that the incident was a minor one and that no casualties were recorded because the train was not operating at the time. In a statement shortly after the incident, the Lagos Metropolitan Area Transport Authority says engineers were working to replace the burnt cables. The 2023 presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Atiku Abubakar, has raised concerns about Nigeria's ongoing struggle with an unreliable power supply and frequent national grid collapses. The former vice president also condemned the blackout in the southeast, northwest, northeast regions of the country, which has persisted for the past 3 weeks. He stated that the ministry and departments responsible for addressing the blackout must quickly intervene to restore electricity to the distressed regions. On the foreign scene, Japan has voted in its tightest election in years, with new Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba and his juggernaut Liberal Democratic Party facing potentially their worst results since 2009. Opinion surveys suggest the conservative Liberal Democratic Party and its junior coalition partner risk falling short of a majority, a result that could deal a knockout blow in Ishiba. The 67-year-old former defense minister took office and called a snap election after being narrowly selected last month to lead the Liberal Democratic Party, which has governed Japan for almost all the past 7 decades. However, voters in the world's 4th largest economy have been rankled by rising prices and the fallout from a party slush fund scandal that helped sink previous premier Fumio Kishida. In sports, the Libya Football Federation, LFF, is reportedly planning to appeal to the Confederation of African Football, CAF, in response to severe sanctions over the disrupted 2025 Africa Cup of Nations, AFCON, qualifier against Nigeria. The CAF's sanction came after the match billed for Benghazi on October 15th was called off by the Confederation when Nigeria decided to boycott the fixture following inhuman treatment by the Libyan authorities who detained the Super Eagles delegation to the game for over 16 hours without food, water, or access to communications. The Libyans had earlier diverted the Nigerian team's flights from the earliest scheduled Benghazi to Al Abrak Airport, which, according to the Nigerian team's Tunisian pilot, did not have the required navigation facilities for such flights. In response, the Libya Football Federation expressed deep dissatisfaction with the sanctions, calling it unjust and unfairly placing them at the bottom of Group D in the AFCON qualifiers. West Ham piled more pressure on beleaguered Manchester United boss Erik ten Hag with a dramatic 2-1 win on Sunday as Cole Palmer inspired Chelsea to a victory by the same scoreline over Newcastle. Tottenham were beaten 1-0 at Crystal Palace, who picked up their first win of the season. Liverpool can go back to the top of the table with a victory away at Arsenal in the beginning clash of the Premier League weekend later. Well, that's it on the Global AM News, and it came to you live from the nation's capital, Abuja. Don't forget, Global Television is on DSTV channel 365, Star Times channel 276, and free to air on Nigecomsat. Kindly follow us across all social media platforms using @Global TV NG and other handles now showing on your screen. I'm Queen Agaba. Thank you for watching. See you again.
Global Morning is your ultimate destination for engaging political and economic matters. I am Uyi Agmofwebe.
And don't forget to include social discussions. Tune in every weekdays from 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. I am Queen Agaba.
For insightful breakfast ideas, business summaries, sports highlights, international and local news perspective, I am Anthony Momodu.
Don't miss the in-depth analysis of current and political issues by the Global Morning team and experts. I am Jumai Manson.
Catch Global Morning here on Global Television, getting on the action. I am Edikan Michael.
We are
the Global Morning team.